Hi, it's McKeown here from Predictable Success, and today I want to share with you one of the most common growth patterns that founder-owner managed businesses come up against at some point. And that is, when the business reaches a certain stage, is it right for the founder-owner to appoint a general manager to take over aspects of running the business, or to make the leap to a fully blown CEO? Now, that issue comes up mostly when businesses are going through what I call in Predictable Success the fun stage. Now, you'll recall that the fun part of a business's development is whenever it's building the myths and legends of that first early stage growth. Everything's going real well, very sales oriented, sales dominated business, but that very success begins to bring with it problems that at some point will inevitably lead the business into the stage that I call whitewater. And whenever the business hits whitewater, the joy of running the business sometimes gets drained out of it for the founder owner, because we're beginning to deal with errors, with mistakes. We don't look as wonderful as we did during the fun stage, and frankly it's just not as much fun. And one of the key reasons for that is because of the stress of managing this ever more complex growing business. So what I want to share with you is what happens in the dynamic of the growth of the business when the founder owner reaches the point where they're saying to themselves, I need to get some help in running this business, but what sort of help do I need? So here's the typical structure of a founder owner managed business that's maybe in late fun or early whitewater. Depending what type of business you're in, you'll give these three management channels different names, but essentially the founder owner will be managing the sales function on the one hand, actually selling the product or service, the ops function on the other, and that's servicing everything to do with the sale, purchasing stuff, stocking it, inventory, looking after the actual activity, whatever the function is, graphic design, manufacturing light bulbs. There's going to be a whole ops side in back of the sales function. And then sometimes separately, sometimes locked in with the ops function, will be the admin activities that will back that all up. Essentially, maybe a little bit of IT, some bookkeeping and accounting, maybe a little legal, but whatever that may be, if it's big enough, it'll become a separate function. If it's not, it'll be locked in here with ops. Whatever you call them, whatever way they're structured, that's typically what the founder owner is managing. Now, for most founder owner businesses, it's the founder owner themselves that's doing the majority of the external marketing work. The folks in the sales department will be doing some of that, of course. There might be 2 or 3 sales people, but essentially the founder owner is not only the overall manager of the business, they're the face of the business. They're the ones that are out there evangelizing, proselytizing, marketing, getting new business, and the other folks are looking after the internal activities, making all of the rain that the rainmaker founder owner creates, making it all hum and work. And so here we have the founder owner really pushing a virtuous cycle of activity down into the business. They're pulling everything in, probably with the help obviously of the sales folks, and then that flows across to the ops folks and eventually to admin as well, to mop up after them, look after all of the paperwork, so on and so forth. Now, what tends to happen over time is, of course, as our business grows, the volume of activity that the folks that are working internally have to look after grows. And eventually they begin to feel overburdened, they begin to feel stretched. This is a very common dynamic in late fun. It's one of the things that leads to whitewater, is that everybody just begins to feel overwhelmed. There's so much to do. We've been very successful. We've been growing lots and lots of business. And so what happens is that the founder owner increasingly gets sucked down into dealing with the impact of this increase in volume and this increase in activity. And as the business begins to drop the ball because of the level of activity, because of the volume that there is, they begin to make mistakes. There begins to be conflict between individuals. A bit of blaming goes on, and the founder owner finds herself more and more involved in doing this. And of course what that does is it pulls them down from the external activities that they've been working on and sucks them into the internal activity of managing the business. And so the cycle of rainmaking begins to slow up, and over time the business begins to develop less business. The pipeline begins to dissolve. Now, at this point, the founder owner has got really three options. And the first option seems the most intuitive and is usually the place that a founder owner will go to, which is simply let's hire more managers. These people are really busy. Let's either promote people internally or go out and get some more people. That's going to help solve the problem, they think. The difficulty is it doesn't, because it doesn't change the dynamic. Nothing really alters here except that the founder owner has now got more people that he or she has to work with. There are more possibly conflicts, but there's certainly more moving parts. The founder owner is going to be stuck with just holding the reins between even more managers. It doesn't resolve the underlying issue. And so option 2 at this point is typically to appoint a general manager. That is, either raise up one of the existing managers in sales, ops and admin, or go out and hire somebody externally who's going to come in and act in a sense as a firewall between the sales and ops and admins folks and the founder owner, to free them to get back to what they were doing previously, which is to work in the external side of things, get their face back out there, market the business more the way that they used to. And that can work very well. In essence, what it does is it substitutes for the founder owner, instead of those 3 individual reporting lines, just one reporting line. But it's still going to be on a somewhat tactical, hands-on basis. Appointing a general manager means that the founder owner is still going to be having to make a lot of ongoing tactical decisions, because the general manager is just that. They're a general manager. They're really more like a primus inter pares, a first amongst equals from the sales, ops and admin people. And appointing a general manager is really like saying, look, instead of me going and talking to all of you, I'm going to talk just to Al here, the general manager, and Al will then feed down what I'm saying to all of you. So that'll work to a certain extent, and it works quite well in a manufacturing businesses, where the founder owner isn't so much the brand, wants to get out there to keep potential customers happy, existing large companies happy and so forth, but isn't so much associated with the brand or the product itself, because the brand or the product has its own life. They're a general manager for a growing business in fun or early work can work quite well. In service businesses, and in very fast-growing businesses where the founder owner really wants to accelerate growth, however, this will not solve the problem overall, and it won't get the founder owner back out there the way they wanted to. In that case, it may well be the time for the organization, for the founder owner in essence, to consider appointing a CEO. And at this stage, whether we call it a CEO or a COO, I don't really care. The terminology isn't really the issue here, it's more the function. At this stage, what we're doing is we're getting somebody in who actually has got a strategic mindset, who can understand what it is that the founder owner is trying to do, and can interpret the founder owner's goals and vision from the grand 30,000 foot level into runway level, 1,000 foot level activities, and can act as not just a buffer between the founder owner and the sales ops and admin activities, but can act as their interpreter. That way the founder owner really does get back out into the external world again, because a whole new type of dynamic here, which I've indicated by the green arrow, comes into play for the very first time. They have someone who they can gel with on a strategic level. That's the difference between a general manager and a CEO or a COO, if you will, that the appointment of the CEO, COO brings somebody that the founder owner can talk with on a strategic level. Somebody who can take that 30,000 foot vision and translate it into strategies and tactics, which they can then delegate to the sales ops and admin function and manage. That way the founder owner genuinely gets released back out into the external world, so to speak, to get back to doing what they know best. Now there's a final additional element that appointing a CEO at this stage brings, and that is that typically, unlike a general manager, the CEO will in themselves bring something new to the party. They'll either have an industry knowledge, some experience working with larger organizations, some local demographic knowledge, their own Rolodex, their own set of contacts, their own opportunities. They'll make the pie bigger for everybody. The general manager, don't forget, being more of a first amongst equals, doesn't in and of themselves bring something new. Often the general manager is just an appointment from within, and so the pie stays the same. Bringing in the right CEO makes the pie bigger for everybody and frees up the founder owner to get back to doing what he or she does best. What sort of transition is best for you? Well, that's hard to say. It's going to be very specific to your own wishes and your own needs and desires. Many businesses find it easiest to start with a general manager and then move to a CEO. Why not go to a CEO right away? Usually it's a combination of just, low-level fear, bringing somebody in that seems somewhat more high-powered than many of the other people working in the business. Maybe the first time that the founder owner feels that they're going to be sharing some of the strategic direction of the business, a concern about bringing somebody in that's perhaps a threat to their own position. All entirely understandable, and if you have those fears, then it might be easiest for you to start with a GM position and then move towards the CEO side of things. For many smaller founder owner managed business, the bringing in of a CEO is just a difficult thing to do. Excuse the truck going past, because of the pure bottom line implications of bringing the compensation on board that's necessary to hire in a good CEO. And so maybe a 2 to 3 year planning period through the GM sort of model, building up the muscle of working with one significant direct report, adding some profitability to the business before making the move to the CEO role is the best way for you to go. But if you want fast growth, you will need to transition from the founder owner manager model to the founder owner with CEO model at some point in your development. It's all about getting the timing right.